Look at them. Rags for clothes and scrap for shoes. And these are the people who raised my bride and supposed to be my in-laws. What a disgrace. Those were the cruel words the billionaire groom spat on his wedding day, mocking the poor parents who had given everything they could for their daughter. Laughter rippled through the hall, humiliation painted across their faces, and the bride stood frozen in shame. But sometimes silence hides a storm. Because before the words "I do" could leave her lips, the bride was gone, vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a room full of whispers and a groom who thought he had won. This is the story of a woman mocked, a family shamed, and a twist no one ever saw coming. And today, it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together, we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. The ballroom was the kind you saw in movies. Golden chandeliers hung from the ceiling, spilling light onto polished marble floors. The air smelled of roses and expensive perfume. Waiters in white gloves floated across the room, balancing trays of champagne glasses that sparkled in the light. It was a wedding straight out of a fairy tale, or at least that's what everyone thought. All eyes were on the bride, Sophia Hayes. She stood at the end of the aisle in a gown that shimmered like starlight. The lace hugged her frame, delicate but modest, and her veil framed a face too kind, too gentle for the crowd she was standing in. She smiled nervously, trying to steady her heart. Sophia wasn't born into this world of diamonds and silk. She grew up in a small town where her father, Samuel Hayes, worked long hours fixing cars, and her mother, Ruth Hayes, took sewing jobs to keep food on the table. But today, she was marrying Adrian Blackwell, the billionaire every magazine adored, the man every investor wanted to be close to, the prince of the city's high society. From the outside, it looked like a love story, but Sophia's heart whispered doubts she didn't dare say out loud. She remembered Adrian's words just weeks ago, spoken half in jest, half in warning. "Don't let your parents embarrass me, Sophia. They don't belong in a place like this." She had brushed it off then. "Adrian, they raised me. They'll be proud just to be here." He had smiled, but it was thin, sharp. "We'll see." Now, standing at the altar, Sophia tried to push that memory aside. She looked at Adrian in his tailored tuxedo, confident and charming as always. He had the kind of smile that could fool anyone into trusting him. And for a time, it had fooled her too. The guests whispered in admiration. "She's lucky," one woman said. "Adrian could have had anyone," another replied. "And he chose her? A girl from nowhere? It must be love." Sophia's stomach tightened. She wanted to believe that too. Then the doors opened. Her parents walked in, humble, nervous but proud. Samuel wore his only suit, one that was a little worn at the cuffs but pressed as neatly as he could manage. Ruth's dress was simple blue cotton, the one she had sewn herself. They weren't dressed for this glittering world, but they walked with quiet dignity, their eyes fixed on their daughter. Sophia's heart swelled. For a moment, the ballroom, the chandeliers, the whispers, none of it mattered. Her parents were here, but Adrian's eyes narrowed. The best man handed him the microphone for his welcome speech. Adrian cleared his throat, and the room hushed, hanging on his every word. "Today," Adrian began smoothly, "we celebrate love, success, and family." His voice was rich, confident. People nodded, already enchanted. Then his gaze slid to Samuel and Ruth. He paused, lips curling. "And look," he said, pointing casually toward them. "Here come the proud parents of the bride." Sophia smiled faintly, ready to beam with pride. But the next words cut through her like glass. "Rags for clothes, scraps for shoes, And these are the people who raised my bride? What a disgrace. The room erupted in cruel laughter. Some guests hid their smirks behind their champagne glasses. Others whispered loud enough for Sophia to hear. Did you see his shoes? Scuffed like he's been walking through dirt. That dress, good heavens, it looks homemade. How embarrassing for Adrian. No wonder he looks ashamed. Sophia's chest clenched. She couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. Her father's shoulders stiffened, his weathered hands trembling at his sides. Her mother lowered her eyes, clutching her purse as if it could shield her from the humiliation. Adrian, Sophia whispered, her voice cracking. He didn't even look at her. He smiled at the crowd, soaking in their laughter, proud of the cruelty he had unleashed. Sophia wanted to scream, to defend the people who had sacrificed everything for her, but the words stuck in her throat. The cameras flashed, phones recorded. The humiliation was eternal now, burned into video clips that would circle the internet before the night was over. Sophia's world tilted. Her heart pounded so loudly she couldn't hear the music anymore. One guest leaned toward another and said, "If I were her, I'd vanish." And then Sophia did exactly that. Sophia stood frozen, her pulse hammering in her ears. Her hands trembled inside her lace gloves, and her throat burned with the words she wanted to shout. How could he? Her father, who worked his hands raw every day so she could go to school. Her mother, who stitched clothes late into the night just to make sure she had shoes on her feet. They weren't perfect, but they had given her more love than all the money in this room combined, and Adrian had just mocked them like they were dirt. Sophia turned toward him. Adrian, why would you say that? Her voice was low, almost breaking. Adrian leaned close enough for only her to hear. His smile never faltered for the crowd. Because it's true, and now everyone knows it. Don't look so shocked, Sophia. You knew they didn't belong here. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of them. Her mother tried to step forward. Sophia, sweetheart. But Adrian's cold voice sliced through again, louder this time, still dripping with mockery. Look at them, everyone. These are the people who raised my bride. Imagine, my name tied to this kind of poverty. The laughter rose again, a cruel chorus. Sophia's chest heaved. She wanted to scream at them all, to tell them money didn't make them better. But she realized something in that moment. If she spoke, she'd only give them more to laugh at. So instead, she whispered to the nearest bridesmaid, Please, I need a moment. Without waiting for an answer, Sophia turned, lifted the hem of her gown, and walked quickly down the side aisle. The veil hid her face, but everyone could see her shaking shoulders. The whispers followed her like smoke. Is she crying? She can't handle it. Knew this wouldn't last. Adrian watched her leave. He smirked, tilting his head like a man in control. To the crowd he said, Nerves, ladies and gentlemen. The poor girl isn't used to big occasions. They chuckled again, believing him. But Sophia wasn't crying. Not yet. She was furious. Her whole body burned, not with shame, but with anger she had never felt before. She pushed open a side door and found herself in a quiet hallway. The music from the ballroom was muffled now, like a nightmare fading into the distance. She pressed her back to the wall, gasping for breath. Her mind raced. She could go back in, pretend everything was fine, endure the whispers, the shame, the humiliation, for Adrian's sake. Or she could walk away, her hands clenched into fists. She thought of her father's face, tight with humiliation, his strong shoulders hunched like a man beaten. She thought of her mother's downcast eyes, the way she had clutched her purse like it was armor, number. She couldn't let this happen. Not to them. She lifted her gown and walked further down the hall. No one followed her. No one cared enough to. In the ballroom, chaos stirred. Guests murmured louder. Cameras turned to Adrian. Did she run away? someone whispered. Did the poor girl crack under pressure? She doesn't belong here. She never did. Adrian chuckled and waved it off, pretending to be unbothered. But deep inside, he wasn't worried. He thought he knew Sophia. She was gentle, forgiving, too soft-hearted to do anything bold. She'll come back, he told his best man. She has nowhere else to go. She needs me, but Adrian didn't know the storm he had just unleashed. Minutes stretched into half an hour. The whispers grew sharper, crueler. Phones buzzed with messages. People were already posting online. Billionaire's bride walks out before vows. Some guests began leaving. Others stayed just to watch the drama. By the time an hour had passed, the ballroom was split, half chaos, half circus. Adrian's smirk faltered. He finally sent someone to check, but Sophia was gone. Vanished into the city like smoke. Her gown, her veil, her vows, all left behind. The bride who was supposed to seal his image as the perfect man had disappeared before she ever said, "I do." And for the first time that night, Adrian Blackwell felt something he never expected. Panic. The wedding was no longer a celebration. It was a scandal. Gossip spread like wildfire. Headlines were already being written. The poor girl had walked away from the billionaire groom, leaving behind humiliation, whispers, and questions no one could answer. But Sophia Hayes wasn't broken. She was gone for a reason. And when she returned, she wouldn't be the same woman. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? The ballroom was still buzzing hours after Sophia's sudden disappearance. Reporters gathered outside the hotel, cameras flashing like fireworks. Guests streamed out, their faces alive with excitement, whispering stories that twisted with every retelling. "Did you see how pale she looked?" one woman said as she slipped into her limousine. "Pale?" She was trembling. "I swear she fainted in the hallway," another replied. No, a man interrupted, smirking. "She ran away." Cold feet. Who wouldn't? A small-town girl standing in front of the richest crowd in the city. She cracked under pressure. The gossip grew louder than the music that had once filled the ballroom, but in the center of it all stood Adrian Blackwell, the abandoned groom. His tuxedo was flawless, his smile polished, but inside, he was far from devastated. He raised a glass of champagne and said loud enough for those nearby to hear, "My poor Sophia." She couldn't handle the moment. "It's tragic, but I forgive her." Some guests nodded, pitying him. "What a gracious man," they whispered. "So patient." So understanding. Adrian basked in their admiration, pretending to be the victim. But as soon as the last of the reporters were gone and the ballroom was empty, his mask slipped. He tossed the untouched champagne onto the table, the glass shattering against the marble. "She was never ready for me," he muttered, pacing. "A conquest, that's all. A project. Something to polish up so I could look generous." From the corner of the room, a woman stepped out of the shadows. Isabella Cross. She was tall, dressed in a sleek black gown that clung to her curves, her eyes sharp with amusement. "So," Isabella purred, "the fairy tale is over. Are you relieved?" Adrian smirked. "Relieved? I'm free." He loosened his tie and ran a hand through his hair. Sophia was sweet, but she was weak. You saw how she just vanished? She couldn't even face humiliation. Pathetic. Isabella walked closer, her heels clicking against the floor. "And here I thought you needed her. The innocent bride from a poor family, the perfect story for the papers, the billionaire who married down. Society adored it. Adrian laughed coldly. Adored me, you mean? Sophia was the decoration, a piece on my arm. Now she's gone, but who cares? I'll spin it. The public always believes me. Isabella's lips curved into a sly smile. Then I suppose you'll be needing a replacement. Adrian pulled her close, his voice low. Who else but you? They kissed, and for the first time that night, Adrian truly smiled. He wasn't mourning Sophia. He was celebrating his freedom. But miles away, in a quiet motel on the edge of the city, Sophia Hayes sat on the edge of a bed, her wedding dress spread out around her like broken wings. Her hands trembled as she unpinned her veil. The silence pressed in, heavier than the ballroom's laughter. She saw it all again when she closed her eyes. Her father's stiff shoulders, her mother's trembling hands, Adrian's cruel smile. His voice still echoed inside her skull. Rags for clothes. Scraps for shoes. She pressed her palms to her ears, as if she could block it out, but nothing silenced the memory. Her phone buzzed. Dozens of messages lit the screen. Calls from friends, endless texts from unknown numbers, reporters already chasing the story. She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered to herself, "What have I done? What have I become?" Her reflection in the mirror caught her eye. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Red eyes, mascara streaked down her cheeks, a gown worth more than her parents' house, and yet she had never felt poorer. The tears finally came. She curled forward, burying her face in her hands. But beneath the sorrow, another emotion stirred. Anger. She remembered Adrian's late-night meetings, the cold way he brushed off her questions, the mocking tone he used when he spoke about her parents long before this night. She had ignored it, convincing herself he was stressed, tired, or joking. Now she saw the truth. He had never loved her. She was nothing but a prop. The betrayal sank deeper with every memory, every red flag she had waved away. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her childhood friend Laura. The text was simple. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." "Call me." Sophia hesitated, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Slowly she pressed the call button. Laura answered on the first ring. "Sophia! Oh, thank God. I've been so worried. Where are you?" I can't say," Sophia whispered, her voice breaking. "Laura, he humiliated them. In front of everyone. My parents. My mom could barely lift her head. My dad." Her throat closed. "I can't ever forgive him for that." Laura was quiet for a moment, then said gently, "Sophia, there's more you don't know. Adrian, he's been unfaithful." The words landed like knives. "What?" "I didn't want to tell you before the wedding," Laura said. "I hoped maybe I was wrong. But it's true. He's been with Isabella Cross for months, maybe longer." Sophia gripped the phone tighter, her knuckles white. "Isabella, I should have known." The way she looked at him, the way she lingered around him at parties, Laura's voice dropped lower. "It's worse than that." Chloe knew. Sophia froze. "Chloe?" "Yes, your cousin. She covered for him. When you asked where Adrian was during those business trips, it was Chloe who helped him lie. She made excuses, told you not to worry. She protected him." Sophia's vision blurred with fresh tears. Her cousin, her own blood, betraying her for Adrian's wealth and status. "Why?" Sophia whispered. Laura hesitated. "Jealousy. You got the life she always wanted. Adrian's attention, his money, the spotlight. Maybe she thought if she stayed loyal to him, he'd notice her." Sophia pulled the phone from her ear, staring at it as if it had turned to stone. The betrayal twisted inside her chest until she could hardly breathe. Her husband-to-be had mocked her parents, cheated on her, and her cousin had helped him hide it. She wasn't just humiliated. She was betrayed by the people closest to her. She pressed the phone back to her ear. "Thank you, Laura," she said, her voice low, trembling. "I needed to know." Laura's voice cracked. "Sophia, what are you going to do?" "I don't know," Sophia whispered. She looked into the mirror again, at the broken bride in white lace. "I don't know yet." But in her eyes, something new flickered, something harder than despair. Sophia dropped the phone onto the bed and buried her face in her hands. The walls of the motel room seemed to close in around her. Her cousin. Her own blood. She whispered the words like they might make more sense out loud. Chloe knew. The betrayal burned hotter than fire. She had trusted Chloe since childhood. They had shared secrets, sleepovers, dreams. And now she realized Chloe had smiled in her face while hiding the knife behind her back. "Why me?" Sophia muttered, staring at the ceiling. "Why did they all choose to hurt me?" Her heart pounded. One part of her wanted to collapse into the mattress and never rise again, to let the world think she was weak, broken, a runaway bride. Maybe that would be easier than fighting a war she didn't know if she could win. But then she pictured her parents again. Samuel's trembling hands, Ruth's lowered eyes, the laughter of strangers echoing around them while Adrian humiliated them in front of hundreds. Sophia sat up straight, anger replacing despair. "No," she whispered, "I won't disappear." Not like this. Her phone buzzed again. Another flood of texts from unknown numbers, journalists, bloggers, people hungry for her pain. She turned it face down on the table. In the silence, a war raged inside her. Her heart cried, "You've lost everything. Adrian, Chloe, the life you thought you had, it's gone." But another voice, sharp and strong, whispered back, "You still have the truth. You still have your dignity. And you still have a choice." Sophia rose from the bed, pulling the veil from her hair. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. The broken bride was still there, eyes red, gown wrinkled, but beneath that, she saw something new. Steel. She remembered something her father once told her when she was a little girl. Respect is the only wealth that matters. A man can strip you of gold, of titles, of comfort, but no one can strip you of respect unless you let them. Sophia placed her hands flat on the table, steadying herself. She would not let Adrian bury her. She would not let Chloe's betrayal define her. Her phone sat silent for a moment as if waiting. Slowly, deliberately, she picked it up. She scrolled past the texts, past the missed calls, until she reached one number. The contact name was hidden under a single initial. D. She hadn't called that number in years, but now she had no choice. Her thumb hovered, trembling. Finally, she pressed it. The line clicked, and a voice answered almost immediately. Calm, controlled, expectant. "Sophia," the voice said. I wondered how long it would take. Sophia's breath hitched, but her resolve didn't falter. She closed her eyes, and with a strength she didn't know she had, she whispered, "It's time. I'm ready." In that dark motel room, Sophia Hayes crossed an invisible line. She was no longer the timid bride, the humiliated daughter, or the betrayed cousin. She had chosen something different. What she had set in motion with those 5 words would change everything, for Adrian, for Chloe, and for herself. The bride had disappeared, yes, but not to hide. She was preparing for war. The scandal of the missing bride refused to die. For weeks, Adrian Blackwell's name filled the headlines, not with praise, but with whispers. Billionaire groom abandoned at the altar. Where is Sophia Hayes? Did Adrian Blackwell drive her away? At first, Adrian laughed it off. He spun the story to the media, flashing his perfect smile and shaking his head with rehearsed sorrow. She was overwhelmed, he told the reporters. Poor Sophia. She wasn't ready for this life, but I wish her well. Many people believed him. For a while. But whispers have a way of growing. One business partner pulled out of a deal. Another hesitated to return his calls. Then came the rumors. Fraud, shady accounts, investors cheated. Nothing concrete at first, just shadows. But in the world of billionaires, even shadows can ruin a reputation. Adrian slammed his phone onto his desk one night, pacing the length of his office. Cowards. All of them. They think a little gossip can shake me? From the leather chair across the room, Isabella crossed her legs, watching him with cool amusement. It's more than gossip, Adrian. People are sniffing around. Reporters, investors. They smell blood in the water. Adrian spun on her, eyes blazing. Then you fix it. You have connections. Make calls. Remind them who I am. Isabella arched an eyebrow. Remind them. Or lie for you again. Adrian, let's not pretend. I didn't sign up to be your cleanup crew forever. You promised me security, power. Where is it? Adrian's jaw tightened. You'll have it. Just stay loyal. But Isabella leaned forward, her voice like ice. If you fall, Adrian, I won't fall with you. Don't forget that. While Adrian's empire shook, far from the city lights, Sophia Hayes sat in a quiet library, her fingers trailing across the spine of an old leather book. She was no longer the trembling bride in a wrinkled gown. Her hair was tied back, her face calm, her eyes sharper than ever. Across the table sat a man in his 60s, grey-haired but sharp-eyed. Edward Collins, her grandfather's oldest friend and trusted advisor. Edward laid a folder on the table. Sophia, your grandfather knew this day might come. He left everything prepared. These assets, these shares, they're yours. He wanted you to have power, not Adrian. Sophia hesitated, opening the folder. Inside were documents, company shares, property deeds, accounts she had never known existed. Tears stung her eyes. He never told me. Edward's expression softened. He didn't want you to marry Adrian. He saw through him when the rest of the world was blinded by his charm. But he also knew you had to learn the truth for yourself. Now that you have, it's time to act. Sophia closed the folder and sat back, the weight of her grandfather's foresight pressing on her chest. He mocked my parents, Edward. He humiliated them in front of everyone, and I found out it wasn't even a slip. It was planned. Adrian wanted the world to laugh at us. To shame us into silence, Edward's face darkened. Yes, one of his former staff came forward. Adrian bragged about it before the wedding. Said he would break you, weaken you, make you grateful to stand at his side. Sophia's hands curled into fists. Her heart ached, but anger steadied her voice. He thought I'd bow my head. He thought I'd be too ashamed to fight back. Edward leaned closer. So what will you do? Sophia's eyes burned with new fire. I'll do what he never expected. I'll rise, quietly, carefully, and when the time is right, I'll take everything from him. The weeks that followed were quiet for Sophia, but deadly for Adrian. She worked with lawyers, digging into contracts Adrian had manipulated. She met with investigators, collecting proof of embezzlement and fraud. Each step was slow, careful, hidden. At night, she replayed Adrian's voice in her head. Rags for clothes, scraps for shoes. Each memory of his cruelty sharpened her resolve. But she didn't just want revenge, she wanted justice, not only for herself, but for her parents, for every person Adrian had trampled in his climb to power. One evening, Sophia met Laura, the friend who had first told her about Isabella and Chloe, in a small cafe. They sat in the corner, steaming cups of tea between them. Laura looked around nervously. Sophia, are you sure about this? Adrian is powerful, dangerous. If he finds out... Sophia interrupted gently but firmly. He already destroyed me once, Laura. What more can he do? This time, I'm ready. Laura's eyes filled with admiration and fear. "You don't sound like the Sophia I used to know." Sophia smiled faintly. "I'm not." Back in the city, Adrian tried to patch his collapsing empire. He threw parties, called in favors, and reminded people of his wealth. But the laughter at his events was hollow now, the smiles strained. One night, a major investor cornered him. "Blackwell, I've heard things. Fraud, misuse of funds. If any of it is true..." Adrian barked a laugh. "Rumors, lies spread by jealous rivals. You think I'd risk everything? Please." But when the investor walked away unconvinced, Adrian's smile cracked. Behind him, Isabella whispered in his ear, "They don't believe you anymore." Adrian turned on her. "Then I'll make them believe." But the truth was already slipping through his fingers. Sophia, meanwhile, was preparing for her return. Each day in hiding sharpened her into someone new, not the bride who ran, but the woman who would one day stand tall in front of Adrian and the world. And the moment was coming sooner than either of them knew. The cracks in Adrian Blackwell's empire widened. Investors pulled out one by one. Business partners stopped returning calls. The same people who once praised his charm now whispered about fraud, backroom deals, and debts hidden in shell companies. Adrian slammed his fists on his desk one morning, papers scattering. "They're vultures!" Feeding on lies. Isabella Cross, standing near the window with a glass of wine in her hand, didn't flinch. "They're not lies, Adrian. They're just truths you've hidden too long, and truths always crawl back to the surface." He glared at her. "You think you know me?" She sipped her wine. "I know enough. And I know this. You need me more than ever. Without me, you're finished." Adrian grabbed her arm roughly, pulling her close. "Don't forget who made you." "Without me, you're nothing." Isabella pulled free, her eyes cold. "No, Adrian. Without me, you have no one left." For the first time in years, fear rippled through Adrian's chest. He shoved it down, but it lingered. Meanwhile, Sophia Hayes sat across a wide oak table from Edward Collins, her grandfather's old confidant. Stacks of documents were spread out before them. Contracts, bank statements, signed agreements. Edward tapped a finger on one of the files. "Here's proof Adrian siphoned money from investors. Here, he forged signatures. And here, look at this. He bought off auditors to cover the trail." Sophia read the papers with steady eyes. "All this time he pretended to be a man of class and power, but he's just a thief with a tuxedo." Edward nodded. "And he's been sloppy. Greed makes men careless. We have enough to bury him." Sophia leaned back, her mind racing. "Not yet. If I strike too soon, he'll wriggle free. I want everyone to see him for who he truly is. The timing has to be perfect." Edward studied her face. "You've changed, Sophia. The girl who came to me weeks ago was broken. But now," he smiled faintly, "now you remind me of your grandfather." Sophia's throat tightened. "I wish he were here." "He is," Edward said softly. "Every choice you make now, every step. He prepared you for this." That night, Sophia sat alone in her rented apartment. The city lights glittered outside the window, mocking her with their brightness. She opened her journal and began to write. "Adrian wanted to break me. He wanted me to bow, to hide, to carry the shame he created. But he doesn't understand. I carry my parents' strength in me, their dignity, their respect. He can mock poverty, but he can never mock love." She paused, staring at the words. Then she underlined the last sentence twice. Love was her weapon, and truth. Days turned into weeks. Adrian fought harder, throwing lavish parties to prove his wealth, arranging interviews to spin his story. But the more he struggled, the more desperate he looked. Behind closed doors, his mask cracked. In one meeting, a board member slammed a report on the table. "This doesn't add up, Blackwell." Millions are missing. Where did it go? Adrian sneered. Are you accusing me? The board member stood. I'm telling you, unless you explain, I'm out, and so are the others. When the man stormed out, Adrian sank into his chair, sweat beading on his forehead. He stared at his reflection in the glass wall. For the first time, he saw not the untouchable billionaire, but a man cornered. Sophia's investigation uncovered one final devastating truth. Adrian's mocking of her parents at the wedding had not been a cruel joke made in the moment. It was planned. He had told associates days earlier that he would humble the bride's family in public. His exact words were written in an email. They'll be so humiliated they won't dare speak up. Sophia will stay silent too. That's how you control people like them. When Sophia read the email, her hands shook. Tears welled in her eyes. Not of weakness, but of, fury. He wanted to destroy us before the vows, she whispered. Not just me. My parents. My family's honor, Laura, who sat across from her, covered her mouth. Sophia. He's worse than we thought. Sophia folded the email carefully, sliding it back into the folder. Then we'll make him pay worse than he ever imagined. And then the invitation arrived. It came in a gilded envelope, hand-delivered by a courier. Edward brought it to Sophia, laying it gently on the table. She stared at the bold letters embossed in gold. Blackwell Industries Gala, a night of triumph and renewal. Edward frowned. He's trying to repair his image. Show the world he's still untouchable. Sophia's lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. Then let's show the world the truth. On his stage, in front of everyone, she slipped the invitation back into the envelope and whispered to herself, Adrian won't see me coming. The storm was no longer building. It was ready to break. Adrian Blackwell planned to rise from the ashes at his glittering gala. But what he didn't know was that his vanished bride, the woman he thought broken forever, was preparing to walk back into his world. And when she did, she would bring the fire that would burn his empire to the ground. The gala was Adrian Blackwell's last gamble. The ballroom was even grander than the one he had reserved for his wedding. Silver chandeliers sparkled above tables lined with crystal glasses and golden cutlery. Cameras flashed as reporters pressed against velvet ropes, eager to capture every moment. Tonight was supposed to be his redemption. Adrian stood at the center of it all, dressed in a flawless black tuxedo, his trademark smile plastered on his face. Beside him stood Isabella Cross, radiant in a red gown, her arm looped through his. To anyone watching, they looked unstoppable, a power couple untouchable by scandal. But underneath Adrian's smile, panic throbbed like a drum. His empire had been crumbling for weeks. Investors doubted him. Partners turned cold. If tonight failed, he was finished. He raised his glass high, the lights catching the diamond on his cufflinks. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice smooth as silk, I stand before you tonight not as a man defeated, but as a man renewed. Betrayal struck my life, yes, but I have risen stronger, and tonight, I assure you, the Blackwell name remains untouchable. The crowd clapped politely, though some exchanged uneasy glances. Adrian always knows how to spin a story, one whispered. Yes, but where's Sophia? No one's seen her since the wedding, another murmured. She left him. Smart girl, someone else added quietly. Adrian ignored the whispers. He lifted his chin, pretending the applause was thunderous. But then, something shifted. The chandeliers dimmed. The music cut off. A hush swept the room as a single spotlight lit the grand entrance. And there she was, Sophia Hayes. She walked into the ballroom with steady steps, her gown a shimmering midnight blue that flowed behind her like a river. Her hair was swept back elegantly, her face calm and radiant. Gone was the timid bride who had fled in tears. Tonight, she looked like a queen returning to claim her throne. Gasps filled the room. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed wildly. Adrian's smile faltered for the first time. His grip on his glass tightened until it cracked. What is she doing here?" he hissed under his breath. Isabella's hand slipped from his arm, her eyes widening. "You said she was gone. You said she'd never dare show her face again." Sophia walked straight past the tables, past the shocked whispers, until she reached the stage. She didn't rush, she didn't falter. Every step echoed with quiet power. The MC fumbled with the microphone, uncertain, but Sophia calmly took it. She turned to the audience, her voice clear, steady, and sharp enough to cut glass. "You mocked the parents who gave me everything money can't buy," she said. Her gaze locked on Adrian. "You betrayed me with lies, with cruelty, and even with my own blood helping you hide it. But tonight, the world will know the truth about you." The room froze. Reporters leaned forward. Investors exchanged wary looks. Adrian's face paled. "Don't listen to her," Adrian barked, forcing a laugh. "She's bitter, abandoned, unstable." But Sophia raised her hand, silencing him. "No, Adrian. You don't get to speak anymore. Not tonight." She gestured toward the giant screen behind her. A video flickered to life. The first clip showed Adrian at his own wedding, microphone in hand, sneering, "Rags for clothes, scraps for shoes. And these are the people who raised my bride. What a disgrace." The ballroom gasped. Sophia's parents, seated quietly near the back, shifted uncomfortably, but Sophia's voice cut through. "You all laughed that night. But what you didn't know was that it was planned. He wanted to humiliate my family so I would live under his control. So I would bow my head and never speak up." Another clip played. Adrian's email to a business partner. His voice reading it out loud as the words appeared on screen. "They'll be so humiliated, they won't dare speak up. That's how you control people like them." Gasps turned into angry murmurs. A few investors stood, glaring at Adrian. Sophia continued, her voice unwavering. "But that wasn't all. Adrian Blackwell, the man you trusted with your money, with your companies, built his empire on fraud and lies. Documents flashed on the screen. Bank transfers, forged signatures, falsified contracts. A recording played of Adrian bragging to Isabella about moving funds illegally. "He betrayed his investors," Sophia said. "He betrayed his partners. He betrayed me, and the proof is right here." The room erupted into chaos. Phones buzzed as investors called their lawyers. Reporters shouted questions. "Adrian, is this true? Did you embezzle millions? Blackwell, are you finished?" Adrian stumbled forward, face red with fury. "This is nonsense. Lies. Fabrications." He grabbed at the microphone, but Sophia pulled it back, her gaze like steel. "Stop lying, Adrian. You can't hide anymore." Then came the final blow. The screen flickered again, this time showing Chloe Hayes, Sophia's own cousin, caught on camera in a phone call. "Yes, I helped Adrian," Chloe's voice said. "I covered for him when Sophia asked questions. She didn't deserve him anyway. If I stayed loyal, maybe he'd finally see me." The crowd gasped louder than ever. Chloe, sitting at one of the tables, shot to her feet, her face pale. That's taken out of context," she cried. But no one believed her. She ran out of the room in shame, whispers chasing her like knives. Sophia lowered the microphone slightly. "Family betrayal cuts deepest, but even that won't break me." Adrian was shaking now, sweat dripping down his temple. Investors stormed toward the exit. Isabella slipped her arm free from his, whispering coldly, "You're finished, Adrian. I won't go down with you." She turned and walked out, leaving him standing alone. No, wait! Adrian shouted after her, his voice cracking. Isabella, don't leave me! But she was gone. Sophia turned back to the audience, her voice steady. Adrian wanted to bury me in shame. But tonight, it is he who is buried, by his own lies. The crowd erupted into noise, some clapping, some shouting, some simply leaving in disgust. And then Sophia delivered the final twist. She lifted the last folder from the table and held it high. My grandfather, the man Adrian never respected, left me everything. I am now the rightful owner of the very company Adrian once flaunted. Blackwell Industries is no longer his. The room fell silent. Every camera turned to her. Investors who had been halfway out the door stopped in their tracks. Adrian's knees buckled. No, that's impossible. Sophia's voice rang clear. It's not only possible, it's done. Effective today, Adrian Blackwell is nothing more than a disgraced man with no company, no power, and no respect. Adrian collapsed to his knees on the stage, his hands shaking. Sophia, please, don't do this. I can change. I can make it right. Sophia looked down at him, the man who had once held her heart, the man who had mocked her parents and betrayed her trust. She spoke slowly, each word carrying the weight of truth. A man who builds his life on lies will always end up buried by them. Respect is worth more than wealth. And you, Adrian, have neither. She set the microphone down, turned her back on him, and walked toward her parents. Samuel and Ruth Hayes rose to meet her, tears glistening in their eyes. The crowd parted as Sophia walked with them out of the ballroom, her head held high. Behind her, Adrian Blackwell remained on his knees, abandoned by investors, shunned by society, and left utterly alone.